Hello, EduMagicians. Welcome to the EduMagic podcast with your host, Dr. Sam Fessich. Dr. Sam is a professor of education, author of EduMagic, and a pumpkin spice latte fan. This podcast is designed for pre-service teachers. Remember, friends, teaching doesn't begin at graduation, but during that first class at 8 a.m. Let's get this party started.
Hi, I'm Gabriel Carrillo from the EdTech Bites podcast, a part of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to now. Shows on the network are individually owned, and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Hey EduMagicians, it's Sam, and before we start into this episode, I want to share with you about an amazing resource. It's called the Educator Candidate Member Portal. AAEE provides you with resources such as virtual job fairs, a job board, interview tips and prep, resume building, webinars. You can even get a copy of the Job Search Handbook digitally. So head on over to aaee.org and create your free Educator Candidate Member account today. Hello, friends, and welcome back to another episode of the EduMagic podcast. My name is Dr. Sam Fessich, and today I have with me an amazing educator. Her name is Simone Buckley. She's a special ed teacher, assistive tech professional, certified Google Educator and Innovator, and I found Simone's content online through a connection of mine over on the ISTE10 network. I asked my colleagues, I said, hey, does anyone have any great resources to help support future teachers in the area of special education? And one of my colleagues made a beautiful wakelet, and Simone's presentation called Special Educator's Guide to Teaching in 2020 was one of those resources. I clicked on it. Oh my gosh, you guys, this is full of amazing resources, ideas, and strategies that you can put into practice right away. So even if you're not student teaching for a while, you can use these in your field work or your practicum classes. And I'm so excited for Simone to be on the show. Simone, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited.
So, Simone, you created this beautiful guide, Special Educator's Guide to Teaching in 2020. Tell me about the why. Why did you create this? What was your driving passion for doing this?
So I saw, especially when everything kind of shut down and everybody went virtual, a lot of teachers, especially special education teachers, were struggling in determining what they were going to do, because just in the nature of the world in special ed, a lot of things is Velcro, laminate, hard hands-on activities. So that transition was really difficult for the teachers and therefore the students. So my purpose for this guide was to help kind of ease any transition that an educator might be going into coming into this fall.
And oh my gosh, you guys, we're going to talk about the great stuff that she has in here. But Simone, before we even get started, I noticed that you have lots of resources under your Linktree and Twitter. One of them was your accessibility and coffee. First of all, I love accessibility. I love coffee. So I definitely clicked on that option. And I saw like one of the last slides was a picture, a cartoon type picture of someone shoveling off the stairs. And he said, he's telling the students, hold on, I have to shovel off these stairs first, and then I'll shovel off that ramp. And the students saying, but if you shovel off the ramp first, we can all get into school. So having this heart for accessibility, teaching and reaching all of our students really is evident throughout the work that you have done here, throughout your social media. So I just want to commend you. You've done such a beautiful job to shine a light on the strengths, the areas of need, and technology and support that we can use for our students, not just those with special needs, but for everyone to level that playing field. So thank you.
Thank you. And that graphic I've used at any professional development or training pretty much I've always done. And that's actually where kind of my name of my kind of platform, Ramp Up EDU, stemmed from, was the ramp from that. So Ramp Up EDU came from that basis of that graphic.
I love that. Yes, that makes sense now. We can put two and two together there. That's really cool.
Yes.
Simone, before we get into the different types of strategies that you have in your guide, can you share with us your teaching story? What brought you into education, and what are you doing today in the field of education?
So I have been lucky enough where I have been able to live in several different states in the United States and work in different roles and see what special education is like in different areas and how things are approached. So I started off, I graduated Simmons with a master's in special education and a focus in assistive technology. And I'm a RESNA certified assistive technology specialist, and I was an AT specialist in California. And then I moved to Florida and Georgia, and I was special ed teacher in both of those states. And then I came back and I was in Boston for the past 2 years as an assistive technology specialist. And now I'm back in public school in Quincy, Massachusetts, and I'll be teaching special ed again this year and doing a lot of work to help teachers that are struggling with this transition for technology and assisting, because it's obviously an area that I feel pretty comfortable with. But I also was lucky enough to last October, thankfully, before everything shut down, I was invited to the Google Innovator Academy. And so I'm now a certified Google Innovator. So I love Google products as well. But yeah, I've basically, since I was in graduate school, had a really big, actually undergraduate school, but I had a big passion for special education. I had always worked I worked with social groups, and I was a PCA when I was in undergraduate work. So I did a lot of work with students with special ed, and I loved it, and I kind of never left it.
I love that. So you have so much passion and being able to use that to propel you forward throughout all of your endeavors, getting your RESNA cert, congratulations, getting Google certified in Google Innovator. Wow. Google Innovator certification as well. That's fantastic. That's wonderful. I'm so excited. I love hearing that teachers never stop learning. And you were a great example of that. Never, ever. We know that learning doesn't stop when you cross that stage of graduation, right? So tell us about your brand, Ramped Up EDU, and tell us a little bit about the guide, the goals, and what makes it a little bit different from other things people can find online to help support students with special needs in their virtual, online, and hybrid courses.
Sure. So everything that I kind of do is really to help I always say it's not just special educators, because there's plenty general educators who work with students with different needs. There's no average student. So it's important that we know different strategies to approach every student, whether you are gen ed or special ed. And really, me making this guide a big push was I did see a lot of information that was being passed out, but it did become very overwhelming. And I just know as a teacher, when you open a document and you see it's over 100 pages, you're like, oh, I don't have time for this. And click out. So I was really like, I want it to be like 50 pages, no more, and like 50 slides. So not even like 50 Word documents of just text. Like I wanted it to be as engaging as a presentation that you might want to give to your students. So really the purpose was to just help any teacher that was kind of struggling on how to reach their students when they are coming back to the classroom, going hybrid or going virtual, so they could feel comfortable feeling like they had a basis on where to start for each.
I think it's fantastic. The way you've broken down the different parts, so teaching like fully virtual, teaching in person, and teaching hybrid. You have strategies for each of those. Let's jump right into those, Simone, if you don't mind. Can we start with maybe we can share 2 strategies per classroom environment, I guess.
Sure.
Let's start with in person.
Sure. So the first thing that I'm just going to say, because it's been something that I've really been pushing, is I do stress to educators when they're going back in person to please not say social distance and emphasize physical distancing. And that's in my guide because for students that are coming back that struggle with social skills already, telling them to socially distance is another barrier that we're adding into there. So I keep saying to approach saying physical distancing, because that's what we're doing. We're physical distancing. We're physically distancing our bodies. We're not saying we can't talk to each other. But probably one of my biggest things in there that I use and love is creating break bins. So when you could kind of have your furniture wherever you wanted in your classroom, I had always had like a break space in my room where students, if they were like stressed out, workload was too much, whatever, they needed a break. It was kind of like their chill space. But now it's difficult to have a space like that in your room or your school. So what I said to do is create small bins for every student where if they just need a break, they can pick up their bin, take it to their desk. And whether it's a color, like an adult coloring book, I have a like Jordan sneakers coloring book that I'm using with my students this year. So like coloring books, stress balls, Legos, anything like that kids can just kind of take a mental break from whether they're on the computers in the classroom, papers in their classroom, they're just overloaded, still giving them that space to feel like they can have a break, even though it might be at their desk.
And I think that's great. And you don't have to share those resources. They can just be there for each individual student.
Exactly. And they can be really personalized too, to each student, which is something that I like and I feel like it's necessary. One maybe other thing that, like I said, I have everything in the guide I have a big passion for. And also everything from each, even though some they're broken up into 3 categories, a lot of the things can intertwine. So one of the things that I like to use in my classroom, but what's great about it is you could use it also if you're hybrid or virtual, is I like to use Class Dojo for behavior management. It's just very easy. The kids enjoy it because they can like create their own little figures. It's a good way to strategize with parents and do your behavior management. But those 2 would probably be my 2. If I could only pick 2 things out of it, which is very hard, those would be my 2 like things to look at. Definitely.
I know, right? Well, this is a 20-minute podcast. We want to share as many strategies as we can, but we're going to link this presentation in the show notes for everyone to go check out. And Class Dojo, a fantastic way to connect with parents and for students to show what they know in different ways. You can snap pictures. You can do classroom behavior with points and everything. It really is a unique way to use technology meaningfully when it comes to creating that classroom environment.
Yes. More things that we can do, especially if we are like my students, my special ed students are returning. And so for me to come up with resources in case I do need to go remote at all, again, this year is important. So Class Dojo is something I'm going to be using because if I do need to go back to remote, I can still use it.
And and I love how you pointed out in the beginning how although these are kind of separated by in-person, hybrid, and virtual, you can use them across, and they're very fluid. Absolutely. So only picking 2. So let's keep going with that theme of 2, and let's go with hybrid. What are 2 options for our future teachers out there listening for a hybrid type model of teaching?
So in my hybrid model, where I talk about kind of different strategies for hybrid, I do get into data taking because a lot of teachers were like, how do I take data, whether we're hybrid or virtual? It's very difficult. So I do emphasize a lot with using Google Forms to help take data to track your students, whether it's IEP goals and objectives, or even if you're just using it for quizzes. Google Forms is very easy to edit. It's very functional, and there's a lot of different strategies you can use in it. Like a lot of educators didn't know that there was a locked mode that you could use. So like you get a notification if a student opens up another window and tries to Google search the answer if you're giving a quiz. So there's a lot of things that you can do with it. But I really like it for data taking. And I have said before that if you wanted to, say, share a data sheet at home, if families were looking to take data on their students' IEP's objective at home, to make a second copy of that. So that way you can kind of view the data to see if parents are kind of on track with how you would normally take the data. So that way that data isn't combined. And then my other thing that I would say, one of my biggest ones is using collaborative resources, specifically like Jamboard, because what I like about Google Jamboard is all my students could be on their iPads using Google Jamboard, on their Chromebooks using Google Jamboard, kind of whatever device they have. And I could even have, if I have some students that are in person at the class right now, but I'm also having students online at the same time, I can have those students collaborate together, which is so important because those students that might opt out and be home, or those students that are hybrid, still need that social emotional connection to their peers in class.
Right.
So being able to do something where they can collaborate in real time with their peers is a great tool.
So can you share a little bit more about Jamboard? Is that new for Google this year or new this summer?
It's been new for... It's been probably about a year, maybe a little bit over.
Okay.
They also have like a physical board, like a smart board that's called the Jamboard, but they also have a piece to it that you can access in your Google Drive, just like you would find like your Google Docs, your Google Slides. You can find Google Jamboard, and basically it's like collaborative whiteboard. So you can kind of do a lot of like, you can add sticky notes, you can add text, you can add images. It's a good place where I like to like have students throw ideas. Like for me on my first day, what's going to be used for, like what are some classroom rules that you guys think are important, and have them kind of spitball ideas on paper. That way they don't have to feel also like they're also being called out. Like, oh, well, I think that we should all like respect our teacher, and then have everybody be like, oh, that kid said respect their teacher.
Yes.
It kind of gives them that anonymous aspect to it.
I like that. So I'm going to have to add Jamboard to my list of tools. Is this something you can access with your regular Google account, or do you need a Google for Schools account?
You can access it with your regular Google account.
Beautiful. Excellent. And Simone, let's share 2 strategies for our full virtual or fully remote students who are learning this school year in that virtual environment.
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest pieces to this is making sure that when students are doing assignments or anything virtual, that our feedback is productive for them, because our students are so used to getting feedback from us in person that when we type comments or things like that, and we know this as adults, certain things can come off negatively or not maybe in the way that we meant them to be. So one of the things that I've been really pushing is using either voice notes or video to give feedback. So for example, using the Screencastify extension is something that I say to everybody should be using that. Or if you don't want to have video of anything, or video is too overwhelming for your students, there's an extension called Talk and Comment that I like to use just to leave voice notes, because that can give so much better visual feedback for your visual learners and for your audio learners. Just to be able to hear your voice or see you is just so comforting to students to know that they're not alone, and maybe they didn't do so great on an assignment that you gave them, but just to know that you're still there, you're supporting them, you're helping them, and you can still they can hear that tone of your voice that you're not upset, right, they didn't do anything wrong.
Right.
So just to really give different ways of giving feedback other than just typing comments on students' work.
Yeah, I think providing that feedback, I love giving my students direct message voice feedback on their assignments as I'm looking through it. And they are able to hear that intonation, that inflection in your voice, and it's not taken so critical, the feedback that you're providing your students.
Yes.
I love it.
And then basically my other thing for my virtual is if you're listening to the podcast and you can look through my slides, I have a bunch of extensions to explore. And I think extensions are so important if you're using Google Classroom in your virtual, because they can really create a universally designed learning experience for all of your students, because you can recommend or use extensions that may help or assist a student that might need an accommodation that you normally can give at school that you can't really give virtually, but an extension might be able to do that. So there's different extensions that will help screen mask, so help a reader track their reading, or do text to speech, or allow for speech to text. So there's a variety of things out there, and that's definitely something that if you're teaching virtually, you should explore.
Absolutely. And she does have so many extensions listed here. And you mentioned 2 phrases, extensions and universally designed instruction. Can you break those 2 terms apart for our listeners out there?
Yes. So the Google extensions, basically, if you go to the Google Chrome store, an extension is basically just a small software program that lets you customize your browsing experience. And there's a ton of different extensions out there, but they do have extensions that promote this universally designed learning experience. So what that means is basically creating in a learning environment that reaches all of your learners. So how can I create one lesson? So all students could be doing the same slideshow that you're giving them, but maybe you are using a different extension that allows a student to adjust the color of their screen if they have a visual impairment. Or you are using an enlarged cursor for a student that might have trouble tracking while they're reading. So there's different ways to be able to create a more dynamic and accessible learning experience using that universally designed for learning platform.
That's awesome. Simone, I know you have so many other tips and strategies listed within your presentation. How can my learners get in touch with you if they have any questions or they want to learn more?
Yeah, so I always freely give my email address. It's at the bottom of my presentation, which is just simone@rampupedu.org, or follow me on Twitter at rampupedu. I do share a lot of my stuff, and I do have links to all the other documents you were referring to, but also I'm lucky enough to follow and work with many other brilliant educators that I will share their stuff as well. So feel free to follow me there.
Wonderful. Simone, thank you so much for your time today. I know my listeners are going to get so much out of this and going back and checking out that presentation in the show notes. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, friends, remember, you have the EduMagic within you. Check out these strategies over on sfessich.com/podcast. You'll find a link to Simone's Special Educator's Guide to Teaching in 2020 slide deck and all the links mentioned today. Have a great day, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye for now.
There you have it, EduMagicians. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share it with your friends. For more EduMagic, check out sfessich.com and follow Dr. Sam on Twitter and Instagram at sfessich. Until next time, you have the EduMagic within you.